The number of changes and the pace at which they are occurring are both growing. Do you remember a life before iPhone? I don't. And it's only 9 years ago.
Oh, fuck me.
Changes are the new normal. But what is going on in reality? Do you know that nearly 80% of all attempts of changes in organizations fail? On personal level, statistics are even worse. Despite all books and knowledge we have about this topic, most efforts end up in a cemetery of changes. Today, I would like to share with you an insight about probably the most important ingredient that we often overlook when we try to make change in our lives. Let's go back on the evening a few months ago. The last thing I had on a schedule that day was a coaching session with one of my clients. We were in a coaching process for about 4 months, and I must admit, I was kind of stuck with him, but I couldn't put a finger on why. He came to me because deep inside, he felt that something is missing. On the outside, his life was pretty good. He had a steady job, fulfilling relationship, he was healthy, kind of good-looking guy. But every night, just before he fell asleep, one thought ran through his mind. Is this it? Is this all what life can offer me? He felt that there must be something more, but he didn't know how to reach it. So he found a coach to help him. He was very enthusiastic at the beginning. He had the power to move mountains. But then time passed, and he didn't make any major changes. He did take a few small steps, but then everyday routine sucked him back in. That day he told me, I thought it would be easier with you, with a coach. That didn't make me very happy because my job is to make changes easier. However, this conversation made me think. I started to compare and analyze. I couldn't sleep that night. I started to think about all my cases I had as a change management consultant in companies, about all projects I led, about all personal coachings I had by then. Why some people make changes in their lives successfully and others don't? What is the missing ingredient in those changes that failed? I figured it out that there is one major thing I overlooked. It is what is in a corporate world known as a sense of urgency. At that time, I worked for a company where a CEO wanted to implement a major change. But the company's revenues were growing, they were growing fast, and people simply didn't see any need for change. They thought, we are doing great, so why do we need to change anything? Only few see that you need to make changes when you are on top. So the first step we did was to establish a strong sense of urgency in a sufficient amount of people. I realized that evening that we work really hard to establish a strong sense of urgency in a companies when we want to make changes. But when it comes to personal level, we forget about this. Let's look at a couple of examples when the sense of urgency exists. When do we usually start eating more healthy? When we gain weight or get sick? When do we start working on our relationships? When our darlings leave? When do we start to think what we really want to do in our lives? When we lose our jobs. Did you notice the pattern? Most of us feel a sense of urgency strong enough to make a change only when life hits us in the face. We wait for outside factor, for outside sledgehammer to change something. We wait. We wait too long. We postpone. We procrastinate. Why? Because we don't feel a sense of urgency strong enough to change anything. But how strong is strong enough? Can you imagine yourself at 70 years old, looking back at life and all lost opportunities? Opportunities you saw but didn't react on? All the moments when you didn't express your full potential? Can you imagine how much that will hurt? There will be no way out because you missed it. Did that hurt? Not a very good feeling, isn't it? Sense of urgency is not a thought. It's not the way of thinking. It's a feeling. It's more than just a strong wish. It's a life or death desire to change. Making change without a sense of urgency is a project doomed to fail. So, let's borrow the idea about how to establish a sense of urgency in our private life from the corporate world. When working with organizations, there are 3 elements we start working on when we want to implement change. First one is culture, then is communication and leadership. Culture is made of values, beliefs, routines, written and unwritten. The same is with our personal culture. It is composed of our beliefs, our fears, our limitations, even our habits. And this is the place where you need to search for a sense of urgency. You ain't gonna find it in your brains. You need to search for it in your heart. What about the rules by which you play the game of life? Are those rules yours? Or are you playing by the rules of others? Maybe you should change the rules first. We all have different trigger for a sense of urgency. But the result of finding it, it's the same. It will kick your ass to go for a bigger goal. The next thing is communication. How do you communicate? Who are the people around you? Do they support you? In a case of personal changes, you also need to be aware of how do you talk to yourself. Who is the most important person in your life? It's you. So be aware how you talk to yourself. Does your self-talk support or undermine your efforts? And the last thing is leadership. You are a manager of your life. How good are you in this role? Is there a part of you which is not as efficient as you would like it to be? Is there a part of you which you want to lay off? Are you a leader of your life, or are you a puppet that other people manipulate? The choice is yours. And now, the very important question. If your life was a company, would you invest in it? Would you invest all your life savings into this company called your life? Or would you prefer to make some changes first? Do you remember my client from the beginning? Do you know who he is? In a sense, he's me. He's you. He could be anyone of us. I'm sure that this is what happens to all of us. We are quickly satisfied with mediocrity just because change needs some effort. And we postpone the time to start with the things we want to do or we should do just because we think we will do it tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. But sooner or later, this tomorrow becomes a month, a year, a life. What do you want to do? Do you want to stop smoking, lose your weight, travel, learn a language? Why wait? Why do we always wait for someone else to push us? How bad does it need to become that will be bad enough for you to make a change? How miserable do you need to feel to make a move? Successful people get a sense of urgency from the inside. They do make changes. That's why they are successful. And average people are waiting for the outside factor. Will you wait? Making change is not easy. It usually requires a different state of mind, different way of work, different actions and reactions than those you did before. 93% cannot make it alone. A coach can help you evoke a sense of urgency in your heart. But of course, you will have to do the dirty work of digging that tunnel of change. However, Rome wasn't built in a day, so even our lives cannot be. All you need to do is to start walking into the direction you want and develop a strong sense of urgency to stick to it. I dare you. Start digging your tunnel of change. It might not be easy, but it's sure as hell worth it. Now, it's time for change. Thank you.